apologies for the late post of this edition of the Open Paddock RallyCast. We recorded this, no joke, 2 weeks ago, and my bad for not getting it edited and posted in a timely manner. In this episode, it's our 100 Acre Wood Rally Review, and an Open Paddock reunion with former OP presenters Doug Patterson and John Olsakovsky, who used to join me in the previous guise of the show when it included IndyCar, sports cars, and the like. We also have our regular co-presenter Ian Holmes, who co-drove the 100 Acre Wood with driver Scott Parrott in the Three Triangles Rally Team rally truck. We discussed our 100 Acre Wood points of view from that of a photographer, a co-driver, media host, and a rally first-timer. This is Open Paddock, the RallyCast. Well, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Shaw, and with me is the full Open Paddock ensemble. And I'm going to start out with you guys just saying, how are you doing and what are you drinking? So, Doug Patterson, welcome back to the show. It's been a while, man.
It has been a while. It's been a while since I've done anything. It's nice to talk into a mic and chat about motorsport again.
So, I got to ask, what are you drinking, man?
I am drinking a fine mug. It's not a fine mug. Now, let me back up. It's a fine mug. I wish there was fine coffee in it. It's Keurig stuff. So whatever the black stuff that comes out of the Keurig machine here at the office is, that's what I'm drinking. When you want something that's almost, not quite, entirely unlike coffee, Keurig.
Love it.
But no, so I'm here at Fundamental Technologies doing all the coding. So I've got one monitor where I'm doing science stuff, and another monitor where I'm doing production on a little card game in Python, and a little tower defense game in Unity. I'm doing some QA on nearing the end of production. So we're like a bajillion different projects going simultaneously.
John Olsakovsky, who is on the road right now trying to get home. A bit of a long day for you, John. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm tired, and unfortunately, because I am in my work van trying to get home, I'm drinking lovely water. Before we finish this, I will probably be at home, and I will have something appropriate cracked open. I hope.
Well, I'm going to switch over to our co-presenter, Ian Holmes. How are you doing this evening, sir, and what are you enjoying?
Well, I'm doing great tonight. Yeah, well, I was hoping to be drinking moonshine, but once I found out
for the Missouri talk show here,
it would have been fitting because I got because we can talk about it later. But yes, we got a third prize, and the third prize was, I thought it was moonshine. But no, when I found out that what was in the bottle was actually 80 proof grain alcohol, I thought there's probably more chance of getting the Model T Ford running with that. So,
well, what do you think? Well, okay, moonshine's usually a little bit stiffer than 80 proof.
Yeah. So tonight I've got a cup of tea going tonight. So we're all going to be really sober tonight.
Well, not all of us.
Scary. It's up to you to take up the slack, Mike.
Yeah, I guess so. Does that mean I did make a double, so, but gosh, there's four of us. So does that mean I need a quad?
Yeah, you need a double. You gotta do the double.
Well, I must say, I am enjoying this evening the Defiance Whiskey High Rye Bourbon, which was a sponsor of the 100 Acre Wood Rally this year. And I must say, it is rather tasty. It's smooth with a little bit of spice. I like it. Search for it in your store because, like I said, it's pretty good.
So it sounds like we're going to have more chance of this show being sponsored by Defiance Whiskey than we are by Keurig Coffee.
Oh, yeah. It's caffeinated, so that's at the moment, that's what counts.
Well, let's move on from beverage talk to talking about rally, guys. I don't know who we really want to start with here, but I'm going to kind of start with how the event kind of started leading up to it. Pre-rally stuff, the recce, and all that. I know that when we came in and landed on, I guess it would have been on Tuesday, because we had to be there for Wednesday's little award ceremony thing, downpour of rain starting that night. it was both Tuesday and Wednesday. There was a lot of water that was coming down.
We rolled in Thursday, and it wasn't rainy, but it was overcast, cold, and a lot of wind. But it only just stopped raining, I guess the night before?
Mm-hmm. Right. And as we were coming in, I was particularly keen to be looking at all the waterways as we were crossing them. As I've been at 100 Acre before when we've had deluges of rain, and a lot of those little creeks and rivers that at first you look, oh, quaint little creek, until all of a sudden you get a rainstorm, and it's a mess. With those hills, it literally is like a funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you think 1 inch of rain, okay, 1 inch, until you're realizing the area this is spread out and then concentrated down into, it becomes a foot and a half very, very quickly.
Yeah, we had a very interesting drive down on. Wife and I left the prairies about 7:00 on Wednesday morning, and we had 5 hours of fog. I drove through 5 hours of fog, which was pretty much as far as like Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or somewhere like that. Then we had like 2 hours of sunshine, and then the rest of the way we got caught in that downpour. So it was not a lot of fun. But Scott, who was towing the truck, he probably had it even worse. He left his home about 10:00, and he got caught in sleet and ice storm.
Ew.
Yeah.
While towing a truck.
Nah, and it ruined our nice new vinyl job on the rally truck. If you paid a lot of attention to the rally truck on the event, you'd see that one side was relatively unscathed, but the other side, the red and blue stripes on the bottom half of the truck were just like totally ripped off, and they just like got ripped off in an ice storm. So we weren't too happy about that, as we'd spent like 4 or 5 hours doing the vinyl over a couple of nights.
One thing, when we were out on recce, looking at the roads, you're right, it definitely dried up on Thursday when you guys showed up. It was the biggest downpour we saw was on Wednesday. It was just really coming down. So everything was really swollen. And now, Doug, this is your home rally. You're from the state, and I noticed that when you go to some of these water crossings, I didn't realize that you guys had Rally Argentina style fords that are concrete covered or paved, where the water is supposed to go over the top of it.
Well, yes. So how it normally works is on some of the larger fords, there's a culvert, right? So with normal flow, the water will go just through the drainage pipes underneath the concrete. But if there's a lot of water, they're designed with a beveled side, usually. We found a couple where John, you remember, it was like, oh, don't cut. We're going to fall off the edge. But most of them have a little beveled edge so that as the water comes downstream, it can sluice up and over pretty easily. Those are far more economical for those little crossings for as little traffic as these forest roads get, rather than building a steel bridge or something like that that's going to require routine maintenance. So yeah, there's a lot of those there down in the Ozarks. And by and large, it's not a problem until you get rain like we had the Wednesday before the rally. And of course, Thursday it was beautiful weather. It was dry, it was sunny there in Salem. Absolutely gorgeous as we're watching cars come through Tech. But there, all that water didn't vanish instantly. It's weird geology down there. It's clay and limestone, right? And so the water doesn't percolate through that clay all that well, especially since we just had all of our winter snow melt and saturate the ground. So the rain was falling onto already saturated clay. And then what isn't clay is limestone, which that region of Missouri is well known for caves. Water dissolves limestone pretty well. Karst geology, it's called, and you can all this water can just vanish instantly and then be spat out somewhere else. It does weird things. Water does down there. Even though it was beautiful weather on Thursday, I know we kind of researched a couple of areas, and when you and Matt were out, and there were some places that were just straight up impassable still.
Yeah. So, and by the way, folks, can you tell that Doug's a professor? Right. That's no joke. He really is. Anyway, yes, Matt and I, we went and recce'd 3 or 4 stages. The big one that had, a bunch of the challenges on it was Loop Southern, or Southern Loop as everybody calls it. I don't know why they called it Loop Southern. I think they did that because it was run in reverse, so they decided to reverse the name. Clever.
Yeah,
Love it.
13.
All right.
Well played.
Yeah, exactly. But there were parts that, you went across a water crossing and, your vehicle had to pop up. And granted, we had a truck with 4-wheel drive, thank goodness. And then you had that nasty wet clay just up above it, and you're trying to go uphill through it. And it was rutted 6 inches deep in places, just slippy, slimy, nasty stuff. So pretty difficult. I heard that there were some stages that you couldn't even get to, depending on the vehicle that you had. And Ian, being a competitor yourself, and you had to recce all these stages, why don't you tell us about your experience doing recce at this event? And is this your first or second time doing 100 Acre?
This is my first time doing 100 Acre, and I saw you and Matt out on at the cattle jump, didn't I? And you asked us how recce was going, and we said it was the recce from hell. And it really was quite an ordeal. We encountered the fast-flowing, flooding waters in the morning. We were trying to get onto Westover Pandora, so that was stage 5 and 10, and we came across the river there, and it was a wide crossing, and we could see there was a lot of water there. And Scott eased Scott's got a big F-150, F-250 type truck, and he eased it into the water, and he could see that the water was actually going to get inside the truck. So we decided to back out of that one and try and find somewhere else to cross. And as we pulled away from the water crossing, this white Subaru came the other way, and I thought, well, we'll be nice. We'll flag them down and we'll tell them what the problem is. And so we flagged the vehicle down, and the driver wound the window down, and it was Petter Solberg.
Of all things, right? Did you about drop a load in your pants when you saw that?
I think Scott did. I think Scott was pretty excited about that. So we told him, and he said, "Yeah, you won't get through there, not in that." So we told him we wouldn't get through in the truck. So we decided together to try and find another water crossing. So there was us in the F-250 or whatever it is, and Petter Solberg bouncing down these roads trying to find a water crossing. So we got to another water crossing, and it was just as bad. So we actually didn't get to recce Westover Pandora because it was so bad. I don't know if Petter Solberg got to, and Oliver and Aaron got to recce Westover Pandora, because we never saw them again after that, and we didn't get their autographs. Dang it!
Well, those clever guys in Subaru and some of the other top teams, they came in from the reverse side.
Yeah, we actually went round from the reverse side. This was still in the morning when we were out there, and the water level was still really high. I heard that the water level dropped off in the afternoon, but we had to go out to Salem and recce Saturday's loop of stages in the afternoon. We aren't a big team. We're just the two of us, so we're on a tight schedule, so we can't mess around like that. But we had plenty of fun and games on the on the Saturday loop as well, because we got at Southern Loop. I mean, that was an epically fun stage to actually drive on rally day, but oh boy, on recce day we came across several of those water crossings, and then the steep rutted mudded slopes that you were talking about. And we came across this one water crossing, and we were just about to go up the slope, and from the top of the corner, about 50-60 yards away, this blue Hyundai appeared around the corner and just slid down the hill.
Oh my!
Then they stopped, and then they tried to go back up. They got another 10 yards up the hill, and then it just started to slide down again. And when we realised that things were this wasn't your normal sort of recce. We did drive past them and offered to tow them out if they had a rope, but they didn't have a rope, and we weren't carrying a rope. So I guess they were left to their own devices. But there were some forestry people about on the stage, so hopefully they got hauled out by the forestry people. But it was a pretty incredible experience. Oh, and there's another one I just remembered. Was it stage 4? Was it stage 3 or 4? We just recce'd, and you left the stage, and you went on one of these barely wide enough for the F-150 roads, and there was a water crossing, and the water level was so high, it's like Scott just looked at it and he said, "Where does the road go?" We could not see where the road actually went. So I'm looking for a gap in the trees to give us a clue to where the road might actually go. And in the end, we found one, and we sort of pointed the truck in that general direction, and it was the right direction to go. But you couldn't tell whether the gap in the trees was for the road, or whether there was a gap in the trees for the river. I mean, you could have easily taken a wrong turn there and totally messed things up. But that was one of the most epic parts of the recce, because you drove through this river in flood, and then came out of it and went into another river crossing, and then you went around a corner, and there's a sign on a tree: "Trespassers will be shot."
That sounds like that area of Missouri, all right.
I was going to say, and that's not a joke. That was put there on purpose.
Yeah.
Did you hear banjos in the background by any chance?
The scary thing was the thing was the cabin we were staying in just outside of Steelville. There was a banjo hanging on the wall, and that was the first thing I thought about. Was that. But yeah,
banjos get a bad rap, man. Don't hear the banjo.
But no, this was the most fantastic piece of road. It really was. It twisted and wound around, and there was the "Trespassers will be shot" sign on the tree. And we were going through this water every 50, 60 yards, and the trail seemed to go through people's front yards. It would go through the river and come out. The trail would go through the river and come out of the river, and it seemed like it went through somebody's front yard. And the dog would chase us, and was expecting somebody to appear on the front porch with a gun. But it was an epic experience. That was.
Okay. Speaking of epic experiences, okay, this being my first rally of any type.
Now, explain, John, because you're from Texas. There's not a lot of rallying down there, other than we've got our friends from Rally Ready Rally School there. But as far as actual events to go to, there just isn't much. No,
there's not. I mean, Brianna Korn has her rally cross, but that's a whole other animal, right? So yeah, the experience of a rally is 100% new to me. So we're spending the day in service, at tech inspection there in Salem, and we're hearing the stories of whoever had communication, I guess, with their recce crew coming back about just how awful everything was out on this stage or that stage. And I think there was a point where, there were questions on whether stages might be canceled because of road conditions and weather and, passability. I heard stories of apparently trees that were down and people having to take chainsaws and cut them up to get them off of the stage roads and that sort of thing. And I'm thinking in my head, it's like, how bad is there? But honestly, by the time we went out on stage Friday morning, it was really pleasantly surprising how much of it had drained off by that point.
But back to the thing about the trees being down. I remember seeing a video, and Mike, Ian, you may remember this better than I do. I want to say it was the 515 guys during their recce that this happened to. They're driving through, and a tree literally fell down towards the road as they drove underneath it. You see it in the little GoPro cam video that they had. Do you remember the clip that I'm talking about?
I must have missed that one, but I did hear about it, and I mean that sounded pretty scary. I mean, there was multiple trees down out there. I know that me and Matt had stopped to try and see if we could help pull one maybe a little bit more out of the road. You kind of get, if you went way left onto the edge of the road, you kind of go around it. But and then we ended up seeing Rebecca Rustin and Adam Short ended up being right behind us, and they stopped, and we all tried to kind of lift and move this tree, and we're like, nah, it's still part of its root was in the ground, so we weren't able to help there. But yeah, there was a lot of trees that came down. That was some 45-mile-an-hour winds, I think it was, 45, 50.
That was a really windy day. There were high wind warnings all throughout the state. And of course, keep in mind, this came right on the heels of a deluge of water falling onto already saturated ground. And so the roots of most of these trees were clinging onto naught but mud, sloppy mud at that, so all of a sudden their footing really went away. And so I wasn't surprised that there were some trees down, but having one fall towards you as you're driving down the road is that's a code brown right there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I obviously that the conditions looked horrid when we were out there, but the days were getting drier. But obviously, Doug, you know the area, Mr. Professor. As you can tell, the water can actually go away rather quickly, and it was saturated ground. But with those winds that were dry, and the sun that came out, plus, as you said, there's these little holes of limestone or whatever that they can kind of disappear, and the water just kind of goes who knows where.
It's like a pipe, and the ground may be saturated, but if there's a fissure in the rock, down the water goes. Mm-hmm. So even on saturated clay, it can disappear. Well, it doesn't disappear, of course. It just goes elsewhere very, very rapidly.
And you're mentioning karst geology there. It's like I'm flashing back to high school and geography classes, and I remember covering karst geology now. So it's all coming back to me.
Nice. Hooray for science teachers.
Yeah. Oh no, this was geography. This was dear old Mr. Madison and his O-level geography classes. I never thought I would be using O-level geography to talk about rally conditions.
Well, rally is definitely about managing the conditions for sure.
Uh-huh.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the cars, though. I mean, we had this is a big event. Everybody seemed to be wanting to be at the 100 Acre Wood Rally this year. Obviously, the first one that Subaru was going to be at, they had their new livery. By the way, for those of you that don't know, that livery was painted on. Talk about going retro. It was not a wrap. They
on
painted
both of the
it.
Subarus?
Yes, sir. They actually
I was not aware of that.
They actually had to. I was talking to one of the crew, and they, for the color paints that they had, they actually made rattle cans and filled it with that paint. So that way, if they had to do any touch-up work, they had cans of paint available. They could end up spraying it on. So, yeah, no joke. Full classic, going with the paint. I loved it.
Good thing they went to that level of prep, too.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Obviously, so, you ran into Mr. Solberg there, Ian.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing. We got Oliver Solberg. He's competing here in the States, but interestingly, he doesn't have a driver's license yet. And that means he doesn't have a driver's license that even covers him in the United States. So as you saw in Recce, his dad was driving, and I guess he was in the back seat, and then Aaron was in the co-driver's seat.
Yep, that's right.
That brought up a bit of controversy, because according to the rules, only registered competitors can do Recce. Now, I don't know, maybe Petter did register, but it's also, I think, I don't know where it might be written. I didn't look at the rules, but one competitor had told me, and I'm not going to say who, that does that mean I can hire Sebastian Loeb to write my notes for me so I can do better? Because if, let's say, Petter was actually doing the notes instead of Oliver, because I don't know how you see very well from that back seat. I don't know. Was a bit of controversy about that whole situation. But, like I said, excited to have him there. Young kid, a lot of talent. That was one of the big stories there. But then you look at all the other entries we had. There was 81 entries. Unfortunately, only 75 people started. Some of those were people that ended up having a car not quite ready by the time it was go time. I think there were some people that didn't pass tech. Miscellaneous issues going on. I don't know, Doug, if you remember what any of those specific issues were. I think I remember one person had expired belts that they weren't paying attention to, that kind of deal.
Yes, I did hear about the expired belt.
Yeah.
To be honest, when I'm sitting there doing photo work, most of what I'm paying attention to, I'm trying to find that right combination of car, competitor, official, stacked together, doing something interesting that's going to make an interesting image, and kind of an image that tells the story of the process of doing tech, as opposed to being, when I'm doing writing, when I'm following an event from a writer standpoint, then I'm listening to all the conversations, right? And I'm trying to track down what are the juicy stories, the interesting stories, the drama, and all that. But unfortunately, on Thursday, I wasn't doing that. I was just focused on trying to find the good images. Because I knew you and Matt were there.
Yeah, we did end up coming by kind of a little bit later after doing some recce, and we were able to go buy tech there. Tried to hook up with Ian, but apparently you and Scott took forever and barely made it into tech on time. But you did get there, so that was good. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those neat places where you could see all the different cars that come through. And with the 75 that ended up being able to start, I mean, there was just a little bit of everything, wasn't there? Mm-hmm. Obviously you had plenty of the naturally aspirated four-wheel drive, good competition in both the regional and in the national there. You had the open two-wheel drive class, which I'm sorry, just it was so cool to see Hooper and Seamus Burke gonna go at it again, because those two they love to go hammer and tongs with each other at whatever events that they're at together. And of course at the front there was a lot of different cars up there, from a crazy fast Evo 9 that was the Martinez Samsonas, is that I think that's how you say his name, in that car. I mean, he ended up being super quick. You had the V8 LS3 Sonic with Pat Morrow. You had obviously the top Subaru guys. You had McKenna. You had Wallingford finally there in his R5, recovering after his injury. There was just so many different things to see.
I was really happy to see Stephen Sherry back in that white SVT Focus. Last time I'd heard that he was out, he blew up the motor and had a new one in ready to go. And unfortunately, he had I think this year it was a transmission failure that got him, but. He puts in so much effort to that car, and it always comes looking so clean. I now have goals, right, for my little SVT.
Is your SVT going to end up becoming a rally car?
Eventually.
Nice.
At least a rally sprint car. I mean, unless any of you know a good co-driver that could tolerate a novice driver.
May know somebody. I
You
don't know.
might know somebody. I've heard he's rather good.
Good.
I've heard he's very professional.
Excellent. Well, so long as
Educated in everything.
so long as the Irishmen can get together, we'll be fine.
Well, let's kind of get down to the event. Actually, I'm going to switch over to you, John. So, first day, we start out, it's a big park expose with that, where they do that little run around the little fairgrounds little thing that they do there. You've never been to a stage rally before, John. What was that experience seeing all those cars all lined up where you get right up to them? You remember, you mostly been to circuit racing, so you can't get that close.
It's not at top level. You even like in sports car racing, where you can wander through the paddock, you can only go as far as the Tensa barrier that they put up. You can walk right in, poke your head into the window of the car, look underneath it. I mean, they really don't care, and that. Just being a gearhead or petrol head like you, Ian, I thought that was just completely cool. Even the high end cars, the professionally built ones, like you said, Wallingford and his R5, and the Subaru guys, they were just as open as the guy who had the that rattle can CRX in camouflage. They were just as open and just as willing to show you their car, let you look at it, and that sort of thing. That to me, it just impressed the hell out of me.
So what was your experience hearing the cars fire up and see them go off the launch and even just do that short little simple stage?
We left before that started because we had to get to where we were shooting.
Ah, gotcha. So then you guys, what stage were you on, Doug?
We were on stage 3, and I've seen that little loop. I've been to rallycrosses before. That's not my favorite. That's not my favorite stage in the world.
Yeah, no. It wasn't much. I mean, you just went up and up the hill, ran around a little circle. Tried to avoid the hay bales until somebody tags it and shreds it, and then everybody doesn't care. And come around to the finish.
And even though it's not my favorite stage to watch, I hope they don't get rid of it, because Lions Club Park there in Potosi is a brilliant place to start the rally. There's lots of places for spectators to park. You've got the club hall there. It's a great place for to set up merchandise and have the drivers meeting. Have the media safety meeting, which was brilliant. That's awesome. I'm so glad that a professional organization has taken over this rally. So you've got infrastructure there. It's a great place to have the expose. You see all the cars, and then you don't have to go anywhere to see them launch and throw dirt. But it's really not a good place to try and photograph a rally. And so we did our park expose thing, photographed some rally dogs, and then we were off to stage 3 at Pigeon Roost Road. There's a brilliant little corner there where they're coming kind of up over a crest, so it's not a jump. They just get a little light, and then there's a almost but not quite 90, but it's wide. It's really wide, so you can come at it with if you do it right at a pretty good rate of speed. And on the inside there, cars were coming so that they were coming into the sun. I had good light. I had the bit of crowd that was there. This is one of the famously undocumented spectator areas where they know people are going to show up. It's a junction, and it's a good place to watch. They just don't put it on the spectator guide. But they always have marshals there to keep people kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing. But anyway, so that's where we were. It was a fun place. I always enjoy shooting there.
So let's switch over to, John, this is going to be your first time seeing the cars going at anger, right?
Well, even before that, the park expose, now that I have a full grasp of the flow of a rally event, the park expose and that little special stage that they do before they launch out onto the streets to transit to the first stage, it makes perfect sense. And what Doug was saying about, as far as being a spectator there at the park in Potosi, I think that would have been a great experience, even for just a casual fan, somebody who maybe they're just a gearhead, or their friend drugged them along, or they're just driving by and want to see what all the ruckus is about. If they have any interest in motorsports or the cars or anything like that, it's going to be a quick little showcase for spectators that, oh, hey, this is cool and interesting, and this is what's going on in our area for the next couple of days.
Okay, be safe on that turn that you're taking that we can hear. Now, switching over to you, Ian. Now, this is the first rally, I believe, since you've gone through your co-driving classes that you did with the Gelsaminos.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, what your experience, how different it was being prepared for this one, obviously going through Recce and the planning that you did, and then heading out to that first stage, which, by the way, with 75 entries, how long was it before you finally got started? Because it was a long wait. I'm standing there, watching these cars start, and I'm like going, shit, we got another 20 freaking cars to go. I think they're going to be in service by the time the last car starts.
Yeah, that was a thing. Yeah. Well, first off, I was as nervous as, because Scott and I had gone out and written our own notes. Basically, it was modified Gemba. Really, because we only had time to do one pass. We took the Gemba and we modified it, but I still wrote everything ourselves, and Scott changed things to suit himself and suit the conditions. But so I was actually really nervous, and it was pretty good for us, well, certainly for me, to have a nice, easy stage like the Lions Park thing to ease yourself into it, Because I saw Rhiannon out before the start of the stage, and I said, I'm as nervous as hell, and she said, no, you'll be fine. So, but it was it's very nerve-wracking to do that to do your first rally with your own notes, and so that was very nice, simple, easy way into it. We were actually on both days. Our start number was 60. So we were waiting an hour. We were waiting an hour after the first car had gone before it was our turn to partake of the fun and games. So by the time we started, the other cars were probably on stage 3. So it was great for the fans. They got like an hour and a quarter solid entertainment of cars. That was good for them, for certain. But my wife, she was volunteering as usual, and
Power Tour, awesome.
Yeah,
we love volunteers. Thank you.
She actually didn't get to see me do the Lions Park stage because she had to go to the Hussar service, because she was working MTC in at the service. So because there were so many cars were still, they had split crews, because she was working the stage start there, and then she had to leave to go to the time control at Hussar. So there was so many cars there that. That must have been a logistical nightmare for everybody, for the organisers, really, when you think about it.
Ian, before we get too far away from one of your comments earlier, I want to ask the nervousness that you feel, and I understand that the nervousness was a little elevated this event because you were using your own notes for the first time as opposed to some pre-described notes. But when you start a rally, aren't you a little nervous already? But this was just more of the same?
No, there's different kinds of nervousness.
No,
there's this very positive, hyped up nervousness that you're looking forward to getting out there. I mean, it's a nervousness that I'm really familiar with because I used to do a lot of amateur acting on the stage, and I used to have that great buzz of excitement before I would go out on stage. There'd be this very positive, buzzing, full of energy kind of like nervousness, and then there's the plain being nervous because I was the dread, because I was doing something new and different. If I hadn't been writing my own notes, everything would have been fine. But there was a different little level underneath where I was generally quite nervous. I didn't want to screw things up. I mean, I'm very confident in my abilities with doing my own notes, but there's that little bit underneath, that it took that stage to get into things and get going.
Well, I wonder if somebody else in the position you were in, using their own notes for the very first time, if they didn't feel the type of nervousness that you described, I would wonder if they truly understood the import of the job they had in front of them. Because someone who comes at that out of ignorance and overconfidence and say, I'm not nervous, I got this, when what's really going on is they don't understand the actual import of what's about to happen and some of the consequences. Of course, you as a coach driver know very well that can happen if you have an incorrect call or something like that. And all of a sudden that incorrect call means that you're wrapped around a tree or you break suspension on a rock or something like that. So, that's one of the things I was trying to kind of understand what the type of nervousness you were feeling was. And it all turned out well. The truck went back on the trailer mostly the way it came off, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was like we can't complain with our performance at all. But I now I've done the training class. I do have like a totally different outlook on it, and but it was just that initial moment that I was thinking about those notes. In fact, I mean, Matt James messaged me a couple of days later. He said, I was going to have a word with you, but it seemed like you were always busy. And the reason why I was always busy was because I was trying to take my mind off the fact that I'd got my own notes to do. I just didn't want that coming too far to the front. But everything was okay.
One of the big stresses, I think, for a lot of the teams is you were talking about how, that stage 5 was one that most people weren't able to get into unless they found some creative way to get in there. And then, lo and behold, a little bit it was kind of touch and go whether they're going to cancel that stage. I think it was stage 5 and then later 9 or something like that. Anyway, then they said,
5, 10.
Yep, we're 5-10. Okay. Then they said, yep, we're going to run it. And we do need to make sure that the county, we thank them.
That's absolutely.
The county out there, they really love this rally. They go out of their way to make it run. And I know that when we were out on that Southern Loop stage, there was areas where they'd already put down some gravel and whatnot to shore up some of those areas that were super slick. It had gotten worse, unfortunately, since they had done it the previous time. But apparently, there were people out in the middle of the night, people out in the early dawn hours, cleaning things up as best they could to make sure this rally would run. And lo and behold, not only with the drainage, but with some of the help of these crews, they were able to get that stage 5 and 10 able to run again.
Yeah, well, they were actually doing it on recce as well. We followed a couple of trucks laid down with gravel with stone chippings, and they would stop at one of the water crossings, and they would like pour the stone chippings into the water crossing. Where any of the water banks had like washed away, they were putting.
Oh, right. So it wouldn't be too much of a lip for you to hit when you're coming out of it and damage the car. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were actually doing that on recce because we were stuck behind one of them going down this back road. He was doing about 20 miles an hour, and we're going like, "Come on, we need to get back because we've got to get to tech," sort of thing.
But what was the stress for you though in hearing? Yes, stage 5 is going to run because from what I could tell, 80% of the people had not reckied it.
Mm-hmm. Well, ironically, and this is what what we did when we went back to the cabin at night was like I wrote up those stage notes, and ironically, I think that was the stage that I called the best. I can't explain. Maybe it was the flowing nature of the stage, but
was that just going to straight off Jemba then that you did with that then?
Yeah, I just straight off wrote the Jemba notes out, and we just I felt that was the best calling I did. It was a short stage as well. I mean, it was only just over 5 miles long. It was quicker. It was quicker over and done with than it was. It was flowing and fast, and there's that belter of left hand hairpin about 2/3 of the way in, and that particular stage just went really well for us. I can't understand why, because we didn't get to see it, but we just took it as it came.
Well, John, I want to get back to you. You were saying that, obviously you guys were out at that stage 3 and you got to help Doug being his spotter a bit, but you obviously got to enjoy the action of seeing these cars at speed there. First rally event, first time seeing the cars at speed since you didn't hang around for the Super Special. What was that experience like?
It was not at all what I expected. The speeds were a lot higher than I imagined, especially from the front-running guys, the Subarus and Ken Block and McKenna. Let's be honest, a Fiesta or those types of cars that they're based off of, the street-going versions of them, you don't picture them as a fast car, right?
No, not really.
So to see one coming hauling ass around a corner, slinging dirt.
I feel hurt.
Okay, you've got the souped-up one, specifically.
I still don't think he's pulling 350 horsepower out of it or whatever.
No, not quite. Granted, compared to like IndyCar and some others, NASCAR even, the speeds are comparatively slower, but you're also on a dedicated paved surface where grip is maybe not constant, but a lot closer to it than on dirt where there's, my first time out on the stage, I'm looking at the apex of this corner where we were standing, and I'm picking tin cans out of the racing line or aluminum cans out of the racing line. I don't want to see somebody run over that and cut a tire. That's going to suck. Am I wrong for approaching it that way?
An aluminum can won't puncture a rally tire, thankfully, so it's not like an IndyCar tire or NASCAR tire, but
it will puncture a rally photographer.
Okay, this is true.
Flying off of that car, so I absolutely pick stuff like that out.
Okay, then I was 100% in the right. I'll take it.
Certainly, but as you probably noticed, though, how they approach a corner might be a little bit different from all the circuit racing that you're used to.
Well, and it differs from car to car, depending on 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, front wheel drive. They all have to approach it a little bit differently, and that I really enjoyed seeing, as well as it was pretty obvious who was really pushing, at least through the section that we had visible, and who was maybe being conservative, just trying to make it through unscathed or whatever. What apparently stage 3, there was a lot of action and drama, but none of it happened in front of us.
That's the nature of rally. Never will.
Yeah, the only drama at the pitch and roost corner was red shirt guy that the marshals had to. They were literally within seconds of calling the stage.
Oh boy!
The guy he had gave up, and he's like, "All right, that's it." He was getting ready to walk over to his corner captain. He had stood up and was on his way back, and the guy finally complied.
So red shirt guy's a dick.
I might have yelled and swore
absolutely
profanely at him.
Well,
about me trying to do work, and he's preventing that, and and some other things I shall not mention on the radio that I might have said to him. But
you and a lot of the spectators who were hanging out there as well.
Yeah. But anyway, that was the only that was the only drama that we see. We didn't see any car drama. But like John was saying, it was fun, and it always is seeing the differences of approach to a corner where Tedrick was. So we were on the inside, and I had my medium length lens, 28-70. So I was panning as they were coming by, right, to get that inside slidey shot with the spectators in the background. Tedrick was looking at their approach, catching them as they're coming over the crest in this big canyon of trees, because this is in the Mark Twain National Forest, right? And in the dust. That's something we haven't mentioned, and I think it does bear mentioning. 100 Acre Wood Rally has always seen copious amounts of dust. That's a perennial problem. And we thought, wow, with all this rain, the dust won't be a problem. Dust was a problem. The high winds, even though the ground underneath was still a little sloppy and muddy and slick and nasty, as we found out on Saturday, that surface got dried out by the winds, and yeah, there was dust. Made for some pretty cool photos that Tedrick took on that approach. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, so it's pretty safe to say that, and Ian being in the co-driver's seat, is that the Friday stages were definitely some of the high speed, super fast, flowy stuff. Really, you just flat out for long periods of time on those stages versus maybe what Saturday had. Yeah,
it's. I was just thinking. It's like something that just came to me. We're talking about the changing conditions between like recce and the race day on Friday, and it's like we had gone into the stages on recce, and we were looking at some of these corners, and you get like a downhill left 3 with a drop outside, and you're thinking, oh no, if the road is going to be like as slippy and slidey and muddy as this tomorrow, we're going to make it a downhill left 2 just to knock some extra speed off, just to be safe. And you go out there on the Friday, and lo and behold, you've got grip. So it's back to being a 3.
So can you make those calls on the fly? Because the speed you carry out of that corner is going to affect your next elements, right?
Yeah, I think we did play it overly safe at times. So, but which I was quite happy to do, because the team name is 3 Triangles Rally Sport for a reason. We're not wanting to jinx that. We're not wanting to live up to that name too much. So right. We were quite happy to take it a little bit easy at times.
Yeah, especially with so many people out there. Now, I must say, Ian, you must have noticed after that first loop, you were beating Ken Block.
Yeah. I mean, we went to Tech on Thursday evening, and like you pointed out, we were one of the last there, but we were actually there before Ken Block was. So I have this picture, and I put it on Facebook, and I said, there are our cars. There's the truck, the rally truck, and Ken Block's Cozzy in Tech, and I put, this is the only time we will be in front of Ken Block all weekend.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
It didn't work. So yeah, I was really disappointed to see him by the side of the road there. I think that was stage 3. He conked out within like 100 yards of the finish of stage 3, I think. So I was disappointed, and my wife was actually disappointed because she was at service. She's never met Ken Block. She's never even met Alex. In fact, she said, I was really disappointed that I didn't get to meet Alex, because we know Rhiannon very well, but she's never actually met Alex. So she said, I was looking forward to meeting Alex for the first time. So she didn't get to meet Alex either.
Well, he was there in service. They were there in service for quite a while as they were trying to diagnose the car.
Yeah, he didn't come in with the car. The car didn't go through the control, did it? So because it was so where are we going with this? What were we talking about?
Well, we were talking about the different conditions and the high-speed stages that we had on Friday, and obviously, some things that came up that were surprising, like the dust coming up. Again, these stages they dried out really quick. They went really fast. Speaking of speed, that's where Oliver Solberg, we saw him come in the first service. We started looking at the times coming in, and we're like, holy shit. We were all wondering, the 17-year-old, protege, I mean, he's the son of a Solberg. We know that. But this is a new car to him, right? This is a big car. The Subaru is a big car. Racing in America, never been here before. It's his first time doing a four-wheel drive gravel rally. He's never done that before. How's he going to hold up? Bang on the pace right away. He was, 8 seconds behind Higgins, in that first loop or something like that? He was, right there. It's like, how is this even frickin' possible that he can be that quick that soon? Other thing we noticed is, on all the transits, because he doesn't have his license, they had to switch.
Yeah.
And Aaron was doing the driving, and and Oliver ended up in the passenger seat. So I thought that was kind of funny. And then they get up to the control, and then they switch again and come through, which is kind of humorous. But that's it.
I assume that there is provision in the regulations for that sort of a situation, an unlicensed driver.
Well, when the road is closed, it's like at a racetrack, right? So you get to the closed stage, and provided they're old enough to have a racing license, it's like having a driver's license, okay? So he had his racing license. He's allowed to race on the racing stage. As soon as you get outside the control zone, you're now on the public road. He does not have a driver's license. At that point, he had to switch with his co-driver, who does have an international driver's license. That was Aaron Johnston.
No, I understand that, but my question is the rules are actually formatted or written in such a way to have that provision for a driver, a competing driver that doesn't have a valid driver's license.
I don't think it was spelled out that way intentionally. I think it was just the fact that once you get to a closed road, it's no longer a regular road; it's a racetrack.
Right, and so having or not having a driver's license in the municipality in which the competition is taking place is immaterial.
Yep. I mean, hence why we get permits for these roads. The permits basically say, "Hey, now it's your rules. It's not the county or the city or state."
Gotcha.
We did talk to some of the other drivers after that first loop, and the going thing that really was coming from most of the other competitors that we knew were pretty close to the speed as much as they could be. Barry McKenna in his Fiesta S2000 Turbo, and all the other competitors out there, they just didn't have gear ratios that went as high as Subaru did. And so on those flat out stages on Friday, it was extra tough. But then you went into the second loop of stages that Friday, and it was starting to get dark out. We were wondering, it's like, they're going to have full-on night stages. Wasn't there a little bit of a delay? Oh, that's right. Of course, Mail Lady.
Oh,
Militant
yes.
Mail Lady. Every year.
So that was the drama that we saw on 3. We did, always before, there's this Mail Lady, neither rain nor wind or sleet nor snow.
Nor rally.
Nor stage rally, apparently, will stop the Mail Lady from her appointed rounds. And she goes right past the marshals, right onto stage, driving against traffic. And the 00 came by and escorted her to the Pigeon Roost junction where we were, got her safely off stage, and then you could tell he was agitated. Let's just say that.
He drove away in a very Clarkson-esque manner.
Yes. But yeah, it's like, every freaking year she does this. Every single year. But that was my first official sighting. And what was funny is John and Tedrick and I was regaling them with stories about the Mail Lady. And then as soon as we heard on the radio, because there was a marshal on the inside Lonnie was with us on the inside of the corner, and we heard his radio, and I'm like, "See, I told you." We just started busting up laughing.
Yeah, that was. I really feel privileged that at my first 100-acre wood rally, I got to see the infamous mail lady.
Well, she definitely is so famous. She's infamous, that's for sure. But going back to those really fast stages and everybody just trying to keep up. There was also a short little super special just before service there. There was a couple of people that definitely had challenges already. We by that time we had Ken Block was already out. Mm-hmm. We had CPD Racing, which was Travis Neese and Scott Putnam. They were already out. These are some of the top guys that we're really thinking we're going to be up there. Motor Troubles already for ODD Racing, mm-hmm. Cam Steely and Preston Osborne. A lot of kind of mechanical stuff already happening just right off the top. I think that's when the Brown brothers, they started having issues. And that was just the first loop, but the first loop was, I guess, pretty good length. Was it 5 stages in that first loop, Ian?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was good length. It was a lot of fun out there. Yeah, and we noticed very quickly the attrition rate. I think we lost 10 cars on Pigeon Roost, didn't we? The first time through. I know that even though our sequence number started at 60, by the time we got to the first service, our sequence number was down to 42.
Yeah, there was just a lot happening there, and mm-hmm. and now to be fair, this is the first rally for a lot of teams for the year. Yeah. Not that many really go to Snowdrift. I mean, Snowdrift's a great event. But some don't want to brave the cold. Some, they take a little longer to get their car ready from the previous year. And 100 Acre is going to be the one where they're really going to get their start. So our good friend Al Dantes, he was coming into that first service, and he was completely out of fuel. What was really cool about that story, though, is the tow that he got. Something happened where he was, I guess, fuel line or something like that, busted. So basically, he dumped all his fuel, and the Honda Fit that's been around for forever... Mm-hmm. So the HPD Maxxis Honda Fit team, they towed him across a river, across one of the river crossings that he called a lake.
Over the river and through the woods?
Yeah, exactly. And over a mountain on the way over. And and all the way back into service or towards service. They're hoping they could maybe get the car started or going again to at least do that little super special before service, but they weren't able to, and they basically had to do a rally restart. They had to call it a day. They handed in their time card, but then were able to actually kind of come back and get going again. So frustrating for them because it was such a simple fix, frustratingly simple fix, but it wasn't an easy one to find and diagnose. So, but they did get going again, so that was cool for them. But yeah, the attrition rate, John, this is something you probably haven't experienced a whole lot, but you're kind of wondering, I think you were saying, is this normal that this many cars DNF? And I'd have to say, yep, because at its core, rally racing is an endurance sport, and it's not just about the distance, because maybe the distances aren't super huge anymore these days, but managing the conditions, especially at the pace that they're going, and managing your vehicle are still that ultimate challenge.
Yeah, and the distance, if you compare it to 24 hours of Le Mans or something like that, I mean, there's the potential for each competitor to go a different distance. Whereas at a stage rally, the distance is set for everybody, but being able to make it that entire distance safely in one piece or close to it, and quickly, like you said, that certainly is the key. I was just blown away at how much attrition there was. I guess I figured that especially the regional teams, the teams that are pulling their car there on a regular flat trailer, and they're all staying at the KOA campground together. They're obviously not a big budget team. That they were pushing as hard as the top name teams and willing to risk as much damage as ultimately was incurred.
Yeah, they're going to push as hard as they can. They're still trying to find their limits, or maybe they know that maybe their skills are maybe a little bit beyond what the car can handle, but the car can't quite handle it or whatnot. There's definitely those different things that happen out there, and as Ian can attest, that the conditions constantly change. Before we kind of wrap up what happened on Friday, one of the things that was definitely interesting is, as Doug was talking about, was the dust. Now you're getting into dark with dust, and that makes for some very interesting conditions. And what was it like for you, Ian, out there in that?
I didn't like it at all. We did not like it one little bit. It was horrible. The dust would. It was. I thought it was fog to start with, but no, we quickly figured out it was dust, and it would just like sit there in a thick, immovable patch, and you could not see a damn thing. And Scott was continually flicking from like full driving lights to dipped headlights, so to help our vision, because you get on full driving lights and the dust, and that's it. It just like wipes out everything. So Scott was like continually flicking between dipped headlights and the driving lights, and it was not a lot of fun at all. I mean, we lost a lot of time on the in the dark, in the dust. It was not a lot of fun at all.
Well, one of the things we noticed when we were kind of following the top teams was seeing when Oliver Solberg came in, and he's the one that had that completely shredded front left corner, hit a stone that ended up in the racing line. What I really noticed about him, actually, just say a little something about that kid, Oliver. He took it all in stride. I mean, the stresses that you think you'd have, when you're trying to be at that top level, and he's like, "Yep, we hit it. There was nothing we could do." But it didn't faze him. The stress didn't faze him, and he was bang on it again right afterwards. More power to him. That was just freaking crazy.
Well, when he passed us, this was stage 10. When he passed us, it didn't look like he was at any want for speed. He was want for a front left fender. But
yeah, it was gone. It was completely gone, wasn't it?
Weight reduction.
I was talking to him actually after the rally, ended up visiting with him just a little bit, and he said he really did notice on the high-speed corners. This is his first time driving a car with a lot of downforce in it. He's done a World Rallycross supercar, the 600 horsepower beasts, but I mean, he's got a little bit of knowledge in that, so you get a little bit of it, but not a ton, right? And he said he really did notice it in those corners with that left side not getting that airflow over. They had those kind of little veins kind of sticking into the wind there. Dive planes. That's what I'm looking for. That's the word.
Oh, the canards.
Yes, little canards, dive planes to try and
dive planes on a submarine.
Whatever. I've heard them called all kinds of things. Either way, aero bits on the car.
Front aero bit. There we go. I like that.
Was definitely a noticeable thing, and when they're gone, it was extra noticeable. And he was expecting to have grip in areas that he didn't, and it was a little bit more of a challenge for him. So, but his challenge that he had ended up dropping him down, I think about 45 seconds to a minute on that stage. He still kind of drove it to the end of the stage, was able to finish it. I think it was about 3 kilometers from the stage, he said, on that flat. They swapped the flat. Then later on, they go over a rise and catch some air. Well, turns out that damage had messed up the bonnet pins. So the hood flew back, hits the windscreen, shatters it, into, like where you can't really see through it. Apparently on that stage where the bonnet flew up, they stopped and put it back on, and when they finished that stage, they were still only, I think, 10 seconds slower than Higgins and Drew. So,
wow.
I don't know if they had backed off enough.
In Picasso as opposed to HD, right?
Yeah, exactly. But again, yeah, like I said, that kind of stuff just didn't faze the kid. He still was pushing on throughout that day, and was still a threat. But he had been bumped back to third, back behind McKenna, and McKenna was given everything he could.
When I heard about it, everything that happened to Oliver Solberg, it sounded like it was a bad slapstick movie, like it was the Three Stooges go rallying or something.
It was comedy of errors, yeah.
Yeah, it was like everything that could have gone wrong did. But like you said, the fact that he was able to, to keep balls to the wall, despite all of that, yeah, that's definitely impressive.
The statement that he told us when we were doing our little interview with him was like, I've had my bad luck for the rally. Maybe others will have bad luck too. He was rather correct in that statement, as we found out on Saturday. So let's kind of move on into Saturday, unless any of you guys would like to reflect on anything else from being out there at night and seeing this rally finish up on the Friday.
Only very quickly, in that night stages have always been a part of 100 Acre Wood. It's one of the things that I enjoy, because you can, during the day, of course, you hear the rally cars coming long before they make it to your corner. But at night, you just see this glow kind of sussering through the swaying trees as the rally car is approaching. It just adds to the anticipation. And then all of a sudden, your corner, where you've been in this dark, quiet, peaceful place, just explodes with a fury of sound and light and mechanical anger, and and then it all goes quiet and dark again. It is an amazing thing, a rally stage at night.
Yeah, and it's interesting to look at it from from inside the car. You will come upon. You're driving through this avenue of trees, and your headlights are lighting the way in front for you, and then you get to a spectator area, and people have got their cameras, and they are bombarding you with flash, and it's brighter than daylight out there. It's an incredible. It's one of those things that I'm going to remember now. You're talking about it. I mean, I remember us coming on the square left on West over Pandora, and the crowd are like above the road, so you can look out the window. You see these lights flashing away above you, and your headlights are in front of you. They're also illuminating the scene as well. But it's a really cool thing to be a part of, even inside the car.
So what was that like for you, John, being out there on a night stage?
I think Doug's description is bang on.
It's one of the greatest, most visceral things I think anybody that's a motorsports fan will ever experience.
No, I can't disagree. The way that it comes on, it almost reminds me of some of the scenes in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where you have all of a sudden you have the brightly lit up spaceship and all of its, all of the noise that it makes just coming up over the trees very quickly. Granted, it's not Alien, as far as we know, but it certainly kind of seems that way. And if you didn't know there was a rally, what exactly was going on, I'm certain you would scare the bejesus out of anybody.
Yeah, certainly. And one of those sounds that I wish I was out there in the woods to hear, though, was to hear Pat Morrow's LS3 Sonic go by, because that V8 approaching must have sounded something purty.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, I think that kind of wraps up most of what we saw on Friday. Unfortunately, for Matt and I, we were mostly kind of stuck at the front of the field. There was such a huge entry list. It is hard to get to everybody, and that service park that they had was pretty well spread out. There were people ways back, and it was hard to keep up with them. I think the other kind of story that was kind of big, what was going on there, was talking to Seamus Burke. And Seamus, he'll talk your ear off if you don't have a microphone near him. Or a camera. He'll just clam up. I mean, he won't tell you squat. But it turns out they're having this power steering issue. In talking with the team there at GRD Rally Sport, they had put in a new electric pump version of power steering. instead of electric assist power steering, is electric pump assist power steering. And whatever it was, they got some sort of overvolt thing. I think it might have been alternator related, whatever. Partway through the stages, it would conk out. So he had no power steering. Granted, he had a lot of power that he could maybe steer a bit with that V6 Mark II Escort, but definitely made for some challenges. Dropped a little bit of time to Michael Hooper, and those two ended up really kind of going at it. But some frustration for him definitely on the Friday. But moving on to Saturday, the day starts. It's in downtown Salem now instead of Potosi, and you're in the old downtown area, and there were throngs of people there, Doug. Is this normal for 100 Acre Wood? Because, again, this is my first time being at this rally.
It used to be. When we first started going, this was back in 2009, and Saturday Expose is always there in downtown Salem, there on 4th Street. And those are the crowds that I remembered when I first went, and what got me so this is a really cool, top-notch type of thing. And, well, we could do an entire 5 shows on the degradation that happened afterwards. But in recent years, no. In recent years, the entire event, let alone Saturday Expose, had been a pale comparison to what it had been. But I let me say I was not surprised by the crowds. I was enthused to see the crowds back the way that I remember them when I first started going to this event. And the thing that made me very excited and hopeful for the future of this event was to keep in mind Ken Block went on stage 3 on Friday.
Yeah.
So Block in the Kazi, they weren't there.
And they are a huge draw to this event, without a doubt.
They are.
That's one thing that at the first Park Expose in Potosi, you couldn't see the car. There were so many people around it, and it was funny. I saw multiple pictures, and it's like, yeah, here's the Subarus and whatnot. And there's a little bit of gap, and there's some people, obviously crowding around Higgins or Oliver, but in general, you could see the car just fine. But where Ken Block was, just swarmed with people. There was no way you could barely see the car at all. It was insane. So obviously he's a big draw there. 7 times he's won the event out of 8 times competing. Obviously still won only 7 times and 9 times competing now, but still the guy's got a great record there. He loves that. It's his favorite stage rally in all of the US, and the people love him as much as he loves that rally.
Well, the other, I'm sorry, real quick. The other thing that I noticed at Park Expose on Saturday morning was not everybody was at the bottom of the hill, down by McKenna and Higgins and Solberg. It was packed all the way to the top of the hill. People weren't just there to see a personality. They were there to celebrate the sport of rally. You had everybody just talking with drivers, co-drivers, asking questions about builds, enthusiastic about the cars and about the sport. It wasn't just an autograph fest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 3 things from Park Expose on Saturday that really just stuck out in my mind. The first was a spectator who came up to me. I've got a media vest on, so apparently, the assumption is that I'm an expert and know what the heck's going on. So somebody asked me about, Ken Block, and I told him what had happened, and we went out pretty early and couldn't get the car back. And he was cool with it. He was, okay, man, that kind of sucks for him, but, he's going to go out and, enjoy whatever he was going to enjoy from the rally. So to your point, yeah, it was very much a case of they weren't just there to see, Ken Block. The other thing is kudos to whatever Girl Scout troop was selling Girl Scout cookies there at Park Expose.
That was smart as hell, wasn't it?
Those Thin Mints were excellent food out on the cattle guard jump, as well as on the flight home.
Well played, Girl Scouts. Love it.
The other thing is that CRX, the one with the rattle can camouflage. I got a picture of it. There was a little boy who came up to, I'm assuming it was the driver, and he was sitting on the bumper of his crappy looking CRX signing an autograph for this little boy. And I just thought that was just that was cool that, he's just as big a deal to this kid as Ken Block or Oliver Solberg or Higgins or any of the names that you would recognize associated with a rally event. And he sat there and talked to the kid, and I didn't hear the conversation, but that was really cool. The last thing that this left a huge impact on me is watching you, Mike, as you got to interview Petter Solberg. With this huge smile on your face. It was apparent that you were living the dream, man. And kudos, brother.
Dude, to meet honestly what is my rally hero. When I started following the sport, it was the Subarus, I guess, that did get me sucked into it. Obviously, their advertising worked, right? I bought my 2005 Subaru Outback XT. The commercials back in 2005, they were really kind of showing the rally stuff. Subaru was still in the World Rally Championship. The TV commercials here, even in the States, when it's like, the Rally Bred Impreza, right? The WRX, was the thing in that era. And YouTube was just starting to become a thing, a couple of years later, probably more around 2008 or so, and I'd stumbled across that rally stuff and, watched all the previous WRC videos that I could find on YouTube, because it wasn't broadcast here in the United States. I remember just watching, Petter would be he ended up, although he's a champion in 2003, he was kind of the underdog later on, and just always battling with those top guys. And one of my favorites actually was probably when he was a privateer in about, I guess it would have been 2009, before they went to the new chassis. So he was doing the C4 Citroen, and he'd be right up there with Loeb and with the other guys, that had factory back cars. And, he had the same car as Loeb, but they wouldn't give him the top most recent parts that they had developed or whatever, because he was a privateer, and yet he was like right on their heels and would never give up. And just something about just his attitude and just always putting everything into it. Just I was very much drawn to his style and watching him compete. And I just he exemplified everything that makes rally awesome, right? And to meet him in person and be able to talk with him and get an interview with him, I was nervous as all hell, and yet proud and excited. The opportunities that I've been given right now, just wow. And for all the other competitors and fans that got to see, you're seeing a world effing champion, right? In Little Salem, Missouri. I mean, just think about that, right? I mean, that's a pretty big freaking deal.
This is like Lewis Hamilton coming to your local club race.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much right.
Maybe it's a SCCA majors race, but still, right? The Formula One world champion comes to your local road course, and that was so amazing.
Yeah, I was smitten. Obviously he's great. And actually, I must say, his wife, Pernilla, she is a frickin' doll. I love that lady. She is so sweet. And she competed herself, by the way. She drives. Mm-hmm. Now, she also is a co-driver to him, but she did compete, I guess, in the back with the production class, the Group N type cars. So back in the day, she's Swedish and he's Norwegian, although their farm home that they have is like literally right over the border in Sweden or in Norway from Sweden. And Rally Sweden often goes just across the border into Norway and then back into Sweden again, right in front of their farmhouse on that road, for obvious reasons. He's well known in the area. But I didn't realize this, but their son Oliver, he actually registers as Swedish, not as Norwegian, unlike what Wikipedia might tell you.
Hmm.
So he is a Swedish driver. Thank you very much. He decided to take his mom's side there and say, even though I guess their farm home there is technically in Norway, he likes to call himself Swedish. So more power to him. That's pretty cool. Just really awesome to meet him and be able to chat with him, and the fact that everybody there could just he didn't care. Anybody could walk up to him and talk with him. He was totally comfortable. He's great with the fans. He really is. And like I said, Pernilla, her as well. Speaking of Rally Sweden, by the way, they won the Historics. He has a Mark II Escort that he competes in, and they won the Historic class in WRC Sweden this last, I guess that was back in February. So pretty cool stuff. So moving on from Park Expose, this is where we got into maybe some of the more challenging stages of the day. Ian, give us a lowdown. After you leave Park Expo, where are you guys heading out to?
It's something I got to share first. And apparently I was being watched while I was out there. Because one of the things that I'd mentioned at the Gelsomino's Co-Driver Academy was my fear of the time card and screwing up the time card, and how I developed this technique of just like waiting for the minute of the car in front of us and go in a minute behind them. But Rhiannon and Alex had given me the lowdown on the cards, and they'd given me the confidence, and they'd given me an app. They'd given me an app on my iPhone that I could use for calculating the times as well. So I was feeling pretty confident when I went out there. And we were at, so it'd be like stage 12, I think it was, the first stage after service, after the first service. And we were like waiting there. And the car that was in front of us went in early. Now, in the old days, I would have just gone in a minute behind them because I would have thought they know what they were doing. But no, this time I knew what I was doing, so I waited for my minute. And after the event, I was talking to Rhiannon about this, and I said, yeah, I know when to go in on my minute. And she said, we know, we were watching you. I'm going like, how were you doing that? Well, I didn't realize, but Alex, because Ken was out, Alex was out at controls watching me to make sure that I was actually going in on my minute and doing everything right.
Doug, do you watch your students?
I do, and out both, of course, in my class and out of after class. But after the class, one of the things that I really enjoy doing is watching them, and I watch them not to nitpick what they're doing or correct what they're doing. I'm watching them for the opportunity to cheer their success. I've had some students in my astronomy class that are now doing actual, genuine space science. And we've also had several students graduate from our game development program who are working in the industry, running their own businesses or high up in other game development companies here in town, and I love watching them succeed. It's rewarding, right? It's like, okay, look, they're doing it, and I maybe played a small little part in getting them on that path, and so no, it totally makes sense that Alex would want to do that.
Yes, I was like a little bit blown away because they knew that they actually wanted to watch what was going on, because we had several situations there on the Saturday. I had that situation with the guy in front going in a couple of minutes early, and there was also cars. There was a couple of situations where cars were out of order, And we also had on stage 16, everybody was like delayed because of something at the cattle. Something was going on at the cattle guard jump. I don't know what was, but
Rowdy fans, we understand.
Yeah, rowdy fans probably. And so, I mean, I was having these situations to deal with at the arrival control, and apparently I must have passed them all with flying colours. But the Saturday was certainly quite interesting. Once again, it was a big shock to go out there and find that the road conditions were like totally different to what we'd recce'd.
How was that Southern Loop stage, which was kind of the big one that everybody was really worried about with all the slimy conditions and all that stuff? Did the crews really make it that much better? Did it just dry up enough that the ruts didn't matter because they were dried, or what was it like through there?
It was like a different stage. Honestly, it really was. It was still muddy, but it was nothing like what it was. It got to the stage where I actually didn't recognize it because the conditions were like so different. It was really weird to that extent. But we got through Southern Loop without any problems, and we had our first go at the infamous cattle guard jump, which we were like really looking forward to. But
now, when Matt and I were doing our little bit in front of that cattle guard jump, there was this large puddle in front of it, but everything had dried out, that next day. Plus, there was another day in between. Was it completely dry and the approach was okay, or what was that cattle guard jump like?
It was relatively okay. I'm not going to say it's perfect because what you don't see when you're watching the cars do the jump is like the approach. The approach is not like smooth. I mean, there's a lot of potholes developing in the approach, and Scott was actually a little bit cautious about that because you hit these potholes and you're feeling the truck being like thrown a little bit offline. So we were a little bit cautious going over there. So I think something that the organisers have got to look at is like doing a bit of repair there on that section in front of the jump, because that's going to catch somebody out at some point, I'm sure. Well, I mean, we've already had Fatella. It's Fatella's crest now, of course, isn't it? Because of the crash. But I think it would.
Well, that wasn't because of the. That happened because of how he landed.
Yeah,
it did.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
then suddenly having 3 instead of 4 wheels.
Yeah,
three wheels and a spike.
But what I'm saying is like the approach to the jump is it's not smooth. So I mean, it's like you could easily have somebody lined up to do their jump, and they're going to hit a rut or a pothole there, and they're going to get thrown offline, and that's going to affect their flight, which is going to affect their landings. Sure. But they should really look at smoothing that out, filling those potholes, and about a quarter of a mile before you get to the jump, there's like a sharp left 3 and another cattle guard, and the track there has been so badly eroded away that the concrete trough, the edges of the concrete trough of the cattle guard are actually exposed. So I mean, it would serve them well to actually do a bit of maintenance on that trail.
Well, that's one thing they love about the rally. That's where they get the funds where they can.
Yeah.
So, hey, Ian. So, question about specifically the cattle guard jump. Because we were there at the last stage of the day on Saturday, and at least by the time we were there were only a couple of just the least bit of lingering puddling, on the lead up before the actual jump. Was there more standing water in the lead up during the morning run?
I'm trying to remember because I had my head buried in the notes, so I don't actually remember what the conditions were like. But it was. I don't think it was that bad. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there was a difference in the run up between the morning run and the afternoon run.
Like I say, it's like my head was buried in my notes, and by the time we had got to the start of stage 16, that's it. Scott and I had decided we are not going to screw this up we are getting home, and we are getting home safe, so we specifically didn't push it on that final stage. It was just get home in one piece. So we took it easy over the jump. We took it easy over the approach. So we still managed a fairly respectable time over the stage, but we were happy. But by that stage, we were just happy to be getting home.
Well, obviously, kind of wrapping things up for Saturday. One of the things I want to say is, that jump right there. One of those that really seemed to push it over that jump was that battle between Michael Hooper and Claudia Pullen in their Lexus versus Seamus Burke and was it Mullen, the co-driver in the Mark II Escort. Those guys were pushing so hard. The Escort, Seamus, he went over so hard. It sounds like that's where he broke his suspension.
Mm-hmm.
Was on the landing of that thing.
I think it might have a little bit past the landing, because he landed and he was a bit squirrely, but then he kept going. I don't know. It may have been that it was damaged then and the wheel just fallen off yet.
That front left tire was way what was it, like a 45-degree positive camber on that thing?
well at the awards ceremony, it was being held on with a ratchet strap. So I think that angle, they couldn't have done anything about it under the conditions.
Is it different, Doug, from a photographer's point of view at the jump these days? It looks like there was more posts in the way of the pictures than there used to be. Have they redone the fence line a little bit so it's a little more obscured?
They have done that. That's a new fence.
Gotcha.
So it's not that there's more fence in the way, but
just more modern.
There's new wood, and so it's brighter and it stands out. And there's always been a fence there, and the posts have always been annoying. Where we could stand was a little restrictive, understandable, but restrictive. And I kind of wish I'd brought my big 400 Prime, which usually you really don't need at a rally. But the uphill, so the second crest, or the crest after the jump.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I can be up there. I've got a straighter, more head-on shot at the jump. I'm behind the landing zone. And so I can see immediately if it's going to go pear-shaped and run perpendicular away from stage. So it's a good place to be. You're up, you're away from the landing zone, and with long glass, you can still get that good angle, looking right at the car as it's all wheels up. If you remember my shots from 2015,
yep,
when he had the big giant snowflakes, that I was there doing that. But I remember thinking, I've done this shot. I've done this shot a lot.
But you had a big guy to carry it for you.
Of most of the cars that are in those fields. Yeah. And so with both Tedrick and I there, and Tedrick had some ideas for capturing that shot, and it was his first time at the jump. I figured since he's got it from that angle, I'm going to get it from, kind of try something a little different that I've done in the past and get that trailing shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some of the time, for the first few shots, I was standing at the crest, right at the takeoff, at the cattle guard.
Right.
And getting the cars in the from behind up in the air with the spectators on the other side of the road. I will say one thing that was different about this year was the time of day in which they ran this stage. Normally, what's odd, normally they don't run the stage in that northward direction twice. Usually they run it one way early in the day, and then the opposite way later. Whether the jump is earlier or later, it depends. But the jump happened right around 4-ish, 5-ish, I think, 5:30 maybe, something like that.
So you get some good shadows.
The golden hour, right? When the sun's a little lower in the sky, it's just wonderful, wonderful temperature of light. And a good position for the light. This why we wanted to be on the side opposite of the spectators, not just to get the spectators in the shot, but so we'd have the sun behind us instead of looking into the sun. And it ended up being just a fantastic time to shoot rally cars. All the colors are just wonderful. But anyway, that was the posts. The posts were always there. It's just they're newer this year.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That
makes sense. Well, and that, like I said, I remembered those previous shots you had taken from longer ago, so I'm like, something changed. But that makes more sense now. One of my favorite moments of this rally was obviously that battle between the open two-wheel drive. And did you see that video clip of Michael Hooper doing that perfect Scandinavian flick at high speed?
Mm-hmm. That was butter.
That was insanity. He approached that corner at about 100 miles an hour at first. and you can see that car is a 45-degree angle in the opposite direction of that turn before he whips it around.
Yeah.
Holy shit. That was awesome. He was definitely pushing. Yeah, total commitment. And of course, John, you got to hear a couple of different motors out there. Obviously, the four-cylinder things are the most common, but, you got to hear that V8 out there, but then there's the definitely that Mark II Escort with its V6, and that Lexus also has six-cylinder in it. So they got some pretty good noise to them.
Okay, every time that one of the BMWs would go by and it would trail off, it would trail off in the distance. I was waiting to hear you laughing. It's just ingrained in me.
Yep. That M3 music, you did. Yeah, love the BMW Straight Six. It just, what a beautiful motor for sure when it's on song.
Okay. And every car that was out there, at least if it was running the way it was supposed to, they all sounded, wonderful in their own way. Granted, when you could tell when somebody was coming and they weren't having a good day and it wasn't operating the way it was supposed to, and it, sounded like crap. But they knew it too.
Yeah. Well, again, endurance sport. Try and get it to the end. Keep pushing. Keep trying. Do what you can.
Don't let out the magic smoke.
Exactly. Well, finishing it off, of course, we ended up having a little bit of drama on that final stage, and that was the start for Barry McKenna. So we had, a couple of stages earlier, you had David Higgins and Craig Drew ended up having their issue with an electrical problem. They lost 5 minutes, I think it was, on the stage. They had a commanding lead and ended up kind of losing it all right there. A bit frustrating for them. And then, you kind of come up this last stage, and McKenna's got a 30-second lead, I think it was, over Oliver Solberg. And then there gets to be this weird argument, I guess, as they're getting to the start of that stage. Higgins was still first on the road and started out, and I guess the start control workers didn't want to give him his dust minute. It's supposed to be 2 minutes between cars, and as we were talking earlier, the dust actually can be an issue there. And of all people, actually, it was Solberg's co-driver, I think it was, Aaron Johnston, helped stick up for Barry and said he deserves his dust minute. And in this time frame, we were looking at the times, and it ended up being like 10 minutes before he actually started that stage. We were trying to figure out what's going on, and so they had, whoever was working that start control, and like I said, I don't know all the drama behind it, and I don't want to get into too much of it, but his time card was pulled by the worker and wouldn't give it back, and all kinds of weird stuff going on. Anyways, eventually he got to run the stage, but that must have gotten to him, because halfway through the stage, he actually has a really big spin, loses 30 seconds, and ends up finishing the stage and only winning the rally by 6.8 seconds. So, wow. Talk about some stress there. Made us a little nervous about what was going to happen at the very finish there, as far as when it came to the stewards talking and whatnot. But once they heard of what happened, and obviously Aaron and Oliver sticking up for him, and what was the kind of weird drama that's going on there, it was a pretty easy decision to make, and it was great to see Barry and Leon win this rally. They've been so close so many times. They've invested a shit ton of money for being privateers to be able to finally pull out a win. Mad props to them. Big kind of Irish invasion at this event because the winners of the next class, the limited four-wheel drive, was also an Irishman, Paddy Brennan, with Matt James as his co-driver, who's not Irish, but still, really, really, I think everybody was happy with them. I think Higgins and Drew and everybody was happy to see that McKenna and Leon Jordan also, getting that win. So, I don't know, what do you guys think of the podium and the end result?
The end result, I honestly was surprised that Higgins didn't make it. Once I heard that Block was out, I fully expected, okay, this is Higgins' rally. There it is. Again, I was really surprised that he went out. I will say the thing that did surprise me about the podium is that it was a proper professional production level podium. It wasn't just some dude standing on their cars in front of a Vistaprint vinyl banner, right? It was properly done and at a place where the fans could come and see the rally competitors, their cars. You had a little place behind the stage where you had all the cars lined out, all the drivers, co-drivers, and their crew. They're talking and mingling with the fans. And we were fortunate enough that we had actual proper grandstands there in front of the podium, so everybody could see. You weren't having to look over people's heads or anything like that. The level of professionalism and production that I saw take place this year was multiple orders of magnitude above what I'd gotten used to in the past few years.
But that presentation arena thing, that was just fantastic. I didn't know what to expect there. We came into the final control and we was told follow everybody up there to the lights, and we drove down the road and we turned into the arena, and there's like bleachers full of people on one side. There's the presentation area on the other, and so the people are sat in the bleachers are like applauding you as you come in. That was like so
that was totally
cool, oh, that was brilliant. I mean, that set the standard now. If no other event in the ARA calendar has that, they're missing out, because that was like so cool. And of course, we had got so used to the rally truck, the reception for the rally truck all the way through the event. We thought they were cheering extra loudly for us anyway, but that was really, really cool. And like, kudos to the organizers for that piece alone. That was so special. That really was.
But okay, not having any frame of reference, I'm saddened to learn that kind of spectator-friendly awards ceremony after the rally isn't the norm, or at least hasn't been.
Well, it is the norm in that, kind of everybody is kind of there, but not in a format where the cars as they finish go like right in front of a crowd. Gotcha. That part usually isn't there. It's not often that you can have the final time control necessarily be in front of stadium seating. Mm-hmm. There just aren't a lot of venues where you have bleachers and things like that ready to go for the fans. Usually it's more like last year at Oregon Trail, we finished up at this awesome old museum that, the museum isn't old, but they got, obviously a bunch of old stuff there, which is really perfect. It overlooks the Columbia Gorge, and it's part of the original Oregon Trail, right? And it's a great kind of pioneer museum that they've got there, and all the cars kind of pulled up in the parking lot there, and fans could interact with them. But it's not that there was any seating that people could see everybody approach and cheer them on as they came through. So just a little bit different kind of design, and they took full advantage of what they got there. So kudos to Missouri and the 100 Acre Wood Rally folks, the organizers, to come up with a design like that. I thought that was really freaking wicked. Very, very cool stuff. So I guess final thoughts and reflections on this rally, because there's a lot of cool stuff. Like I said, for me, First time in Missouri, I'm going to say just the regular roads there. There needs to be Targa, Missouri, because just the highways there are perfectly cambered on the pavement and whatnot. I'd love to rally that, let alone the frickin' roads and the gravel roads to race on. What a beautiful state.
I was wondering what it would take to even just to add a tarmac stage, just for the variety, because that would be fun as hell.
Those are just crazy awesome roads. So I had no idea that it was such a hilly area out there. I come from an area where there's big mountains and then there's kind of flat areas and things like that, but it's just kind of constantly undulating through there, and it's just beautiful. And if you've never been to the 100 Acre Wood, it's definitely one to come and visit. Great memories. Want to go back for sure. Ian, give us your reflections on that rally.
Well, I mean, I want to thank the fans, and not just the fans for turning up, but the fans of the rally truck. We kind of like got a little inkling that the rally truck is like a special vehicle, but the support that those fans in Missouri gave us, that was something special. It was something quite humbling that people would come up and they would pay as much attention to us as they would pay to the Subaru. I mean, Subarus. People would like pour over the back of the bed of the truck, and they would be looking and examining the course of the exhaust pipe. You've seen the exhaust pipe on the back of the
It goes right over the bed. Yeah,
it's a work of art, and they would pour over that. They would stare at that longingly. Everybody was just wanted to talk to us about the truck, and it was fantastic. It really was. I'm going to remember that for a very, very long time. So it's like, thank you to the people of Potosi and Salem and Steelville. Because here's another thing. We stayed in Steelville, had a cabin in Steelville. So on the Saturday morning, we stopped at a gas station in Steelville to fill up, and two trucks, two SUVs full of people who were on their way to Salem for park. They stopped and they poured out of their vehicle, and they had to come and have their picture with the truck at the gas station. I mean,
awesome stuff, dude.
It's just fantastic. I mean, it's humbling that people take that level of interest in your vehicle. That's what I'm going to remember for sure.
I think that brings up a thing about what makes American rallying different, in that we do have so many different vehicles, and that's a draw, right? Versus the homologation that you maybe have in European rallying and elsewhere. You just have such a variety that people really are drawn to just these differences. You see something unique, and it draws people in.
I wonder if, a lot of the interest in the rally truck is from people who they know where there's a clapped out S10 somewhere, and they can pull off the same thing.
Yeah,
certainly.
Why not? Well, we, as a result of this, as Scott and I have found out, there are maybe 3 or 4 other rally truck builds out there. And a couple of them are in Missouri as well. So, there are people out there wanting to build rally trucks. It's the ubiquitous American vehicle, isn't it? The truck is. I mean, I'm surprised there aren't more out there, to be honest.
Doug, reflections?
So I was quite pleased to see the entry list and the spectator participation surge back to its former vibrance. And again, I can't iterate enough what a difference a professional governing body makes. But now that we have a governing body that takes its job seriously, wants to have everything kind of organized in a sensible and professional manner, I think now attention needs to be focused, leveraging that same type of expectation of professionalism at the marshal points at the junctions. There were some places where we saw marshals doing a fantastic job. The crew at the jump at Patella Crest, they were doing exactly the way crowd control and media control, because sometimes I'll admit sometimes we kind of press the limits too, and when we shouldn't, and they need to be on us as well. And he didn't go around yelling or screaming at people. He just told you how things were going to go.
Well, and we say it in the very beginning, right? When we do our media meeting, is that the rule of law for you media guys is that marshal.
Right.
If they think that you're not safe, if you're in a place that they think you're not safe, you listen to them.
But I mean,
don't argue with them.
There's a way to do this, and there's a way not to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy at Telecrest, he was doing it absolutely right. You know, there was no excitement or emotion or anger. It's just like, if someone wasn't where they were supposed to be, he just got out there and said, "This is how it's going to go down." Even when some spectators, after the 000 had gone through, saw some spectators coming against traffic towards the thing, and he just stood right in the middle of the stage as the car was approaching, fully knowing exactly what was going to happen. There was no doubt in his mind that car was going to stop and it was going to turn around, because that's the way it was going to go. And I'll be doggone if that isn't. But of course, we saw the other side of that too. We saw some emotions get a little high with some, and others. I remember, I think it was 11 where we were. It was just like a giant pile of 8 They showed up. Ooh. They were there. They had some little yellow tape across one of the junction road. There's no tape anywhere else, and I was standing in what I felt was a good spot. Great big old tree next to me. I had a good egress path. I would not have felt safe many other places around that area. Definitely would not have felt safe where I saw a lot of spectators. Right where a car would have gone if they had lost a brake line, car is going right for all those spectators right at the end of that straight. And I'm like, why is there not red tape all over there? It was Friday night. I think it was 10. That was the last one of the day at the spectator location. Everything was red. They had gotten completely crazy go nuts with the red tape. I'm like, this is really a fine spot to be. You're safe here, and you've just ruined this corner for our shot.
Yeah, because the red tape, not even photogs can be there, right?
Right. I mean, this is no longer a place where I can make pictures. You know, there's no place for me here. The entire corner is shot. And so some consistency in martial training, I think, is the next step.
Yeah, I think that's where you can run into a challenge. You know, I'm going to put on my organizer hat here, and the events are still organized locally, where the sanctioning body comes in with a rule set and tries to bring some guidelines, right. But it is really hard for them to, kind of force, I guess you could say, the organizers of a specific event to do everything, a certain way. That said, yeah, offering training materials, training, coming up with those guidelines that maybe they can use to help their marshals become better at what they do. Maybe do a webinar, to train some of the stage captains or something, right. Sure. Yeah, I think I could see that as being a thing.
And I know some of the people that organize this and others that have been volunteers for a long time. And I know there's definitely a willingness and a sincerity to making this much better. Well, in fact, you met Brad Plant. He was media coordinator.
Yes, sir. It's good to finally meet him in person.
Yeah,
he's been a photographer for Open Paddock for many years back in the day, doing a lot of sports car stuff and all that, and of course doing the rally stuff too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's working now for Speed Sport and doing amazing stuff. But he knows the right way to do things, and as do the Hubies and others, and so I'm certain this will improve as future events come. And so it's me really being nitpicky here more than anything else. Just I'm elated for the direction that the event is taking.
Awesome. So, John, your first ever stage rally. You had to have a late night run afterwards to get to the airport, but
it sounds like from your point of view, you must have had a heck of a time out there.
Absolutely, it was fun. I mean, I don't know any other way to describe it. Yes, even making certain that Doug didn't die as my appointed duty. It was fun, and it was okay because when we were out at the cattle guard jump for the final stage of the rally Saturday afternoon, excuse me, that was the same sort of atmosphere as it feels like when I go to the IndyCar race at Barber. Mm-hmm. It has the same sort of camaraderie. Yeah. The fans there were into it, and they're there for the long haul. I mean, the fact that the guy was out there in the spectator area with a trailer selling food to everybody. I mean, I don't know who that guy was, but I thought that was just completely cool, and unexpected, especially especially considering they're out in the middle of stinking nowhere. That makes it that much more impressive. It's easy to do catering and a spread for some spectators, when you're in a metropolitan area, but when you're out in the woods, mm-hmm. That's a significant undertaking. And the fact that they do that just for these people who are going to come out for one day just to watch cars whiz by every other minute. Yeah, that's dedication, a cool kind of dedication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're like on the inside of the sport. We don't get to a point of view like yours very often. I mean, it's like it's like I had a friend of mine actually turn up to the park in Potosi. I've known him for like ages on Facebook, and he just realized that he lived in the area, and I said, come on down and watch and see what you think. But when you get friends turning up, friends are always going to say, oh yeah, it was great, but not necessarily wanting to hurt your feelings, sort of thing, aren't they? So
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Granted, I think any kind of motorsports is cool. I'll go to a freaking lawnmower race. It doesn't matter to me. Uh-huh. The skill set of rally is unique mm-hmm. to itself, and it's the co-driver combination and the way they work together. It's not like anything else.
Now you're learning that this stage rally thing is this kind of traveling circus. There's always something going on. You have to get to this place, to that place. It's super high intensity, and then you kind of crash at night, get up early again, seeing some wild cars doing crazy things on gravel and dirt.
First of all, I did not... I don't even possess really the appropriate footwear. So before I do this again, I'm going to have to get a good pair of more sturdy boots. My sneakers were barely sufficient. I got to see a side of it, maybe that it wasn't really for spectators, but I got to see enough of what a spectator sees to know that it's something that, given the opportunity, I will definitely be able to come to a rally again. I think it was, Southeast Ohio Forest Rally or Southern Ohio?
Southern Ohio. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking of that as a backdrop, an excuse to go see my older daughter who lives in Ohio and do something like that, if I can work it out. But to use that ultimately for me this weekend in this mini vacation, the being at the rally was a backdrop for reuniting with friends, and also making some new ones, and it's absolutely perfect for that, and I wouldn't hesitate to use a rally event as that backdrop again.
I do want to say that I'm sorry to a lot of the teams that we didn't get quite to talk to. Matt and I traditionally would do a lot of this media stuff together. There's a new person that's heading up kind of the media stuff at ARA, and there were some growing pains with it. It was something new to me, and I had to learn some new things. So it made the live stream, I think this time around, a little bit awkward at times. Again, we were learning a new system. The idea is that we can have a more professional platform that we can insert logos and throw in, here's the current top 10 to give people information. The video bits Matt and I recorded previously from Recce, that they were able to just kind of put those right in there and play that while I then went and found somebody to interview. That was really cool. Unfortunately, when I went live to interview somebody, it was cut off at times. There was some issues of the timing and when it cut and when it started. Some challenges there. And for those who are watching the live stream, apologies. We're still learning it. We have to come up with, I think, a way to make that work better. We did get some feedback that was about how they really liked, especially at Park Expose, the way Matt and I would do just kind of the grid walk thing. Which is something, you guys know from other motorsports, right? From IndyCar and from sports cars and things like that, where when the cars are all just kind of lined up there, it's a great time to just go from driver to driver, explain what's going on, and just kind of just move right through all the different teams and get a quick chat with them. With that, Matt and I could get pretty deep in the field within a pretty short amount of time. With this method, it kind of didn't work. And we unfortunately were kind of stuck kind of right at the top. Obviously, those people that pay a national entry fee, they deserve a little bit more attention. They're paying that fee. But I definitely like to get farther back in the field to hear the stories, hear what's going on. Tried to at the services when, the top guys are kind of gone, to kind of get back in there and talk to more of the folks. But and I'll admit, there's plenty of folks out in that area I don't know yet. I need to get to know them. So if I didn't get to you, didn't get a chance to talk to you, say hi or whatever, I'm sorry. I'll try and do better. I wanted to get down to the podium or the awards for all the regional guys like you, Ian, but I had to actually help take down the entire podium setup we had for the Nationals. So I was out there helping wash off things from the champagne, cleaning stuff up, and putting it away. That's part of my job. Unfortunately, that meant not going to see the regional stuff down the hill there. But it looks like you guys had a pretty damn good setup there. A little bonfire and pretty cool awards you guys had down there, didn't you?
Yeah. Like I say, I thought my award was moonshine, but it turns out it's just like grain alcohol. But no, it was very very nicely all packaged, and it was we were all packed in this room to have. They had laid on food for us, and it was very nicely set up. The food was good and the atmosphere was good. We got a chance to. That's the great thing. That's about at the regional level. We were all in there together. The competitors and the volunteers. We could shoulder to shoulder with everybody. The volunteers would come up and chat with us. Hey, we saw the truck out there. We thought it was great. Oh, sorry, do I keep going on about that? But that is what it was like. But we had the chance to mix with everybody, and that was pretty cool. And what would be really really cool, if somebody from the national classes, if like David Higgins or Craig Drew or even Petter Solberg or somebody like that had come down and presented the prizes and given out the stuff to the volunteers, that would have been really really cool. That would have been a day for everybody to remember.
I would have thought that actually, if that was communicated, I wouldn't have doubted that that might have happened. Petter especially, I think, probably would have been willing to do that, because the way he was been all weekend, he was just really quite that kind of guy. And that was really neat. Actually, I was hanging out with them in a bar after the event, which was kind of crazy. I'm in a bar having beer with Petter and Pernilla Solberg. That, yeah, that I will never forget that. But again, yeah. Awesome event, 100 Acre Wood Rally. They definitely put on a good show. The people there are awesome. The fans were awesome. The crowds, the cars, just, yeah. I'm sure most of you have read the reviews of how the event eventually went down, reading on ARA's Facebook page with their little note they have with the rally review there. That's kind of a good way to get an overview of what's going on, of course, and make sure you follow all the stuff on social media. But for us, make sure you go to our Facebook page, because there's a whole bunch of photos that Doug Patterson took there. So thank you, Doug, for getting us some killer photos to show. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you can go to his website at Patterson Prints if you want to purchase any of those or whatever. It's great scenic shots as well. Lots of rally dogs, which was kind of cool. Gotta love being a pet-friendly event that it is. As always, you can subscribe to this on Podbean, on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or search your favorite podcast app. We're pretty much everywhere if you just do a search for the RallyCast, the Open Paddock RallyCast. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Shaw. For Ian Holmes, for John Olsakovsky, for Doug Patterson, the whole Open Paddock crew, everybody have a good day, and we'll see you at the next one.
Woo!